Hello everyone and welcome to Avantika Designeering Series or ADS as we like to call it. Every week on Wednesday, we feature design and technology leaders who share their professional journey, their thoughts on their domain of work, and designeering where the world of design and engineering meet. Make sure you follow us on social media, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook and Twitter. And with that, let's continue with your show.
Finance has always been a complex topic for most people to wrap their heads around. Creating an inclusive solution in this context can be a difficult task to pull. Having a deep understanding of the user's needs and context can help in creating inclusive and immersive experiences that simplify their lifestyle. It can lead to a better customer experience and help foster an amicable relationship between humans and finance to make the topic less intimidating. So, how can designers create seamless and unified experiences that are also inclusive? To know more about this theme, in this episode, we interact with Ashok Shetty, Vice President and Head of User Experience Design Studio at HDFC Bank. With over 2 decades of experience defining the product vision, building design teams, and establishing best practices in UX and UI. He holds expertise in design strategy for the ecosystem, omni-channel, user research, interaction design, human-centered design, design thinking methods, and much more. And that's why on our journey of discovering designeering, we talked to him about designing beyond frameworks. Hello, Ashok. Welcome to Avantika Designeering podcast series. It's an honor and pleasure for us to host you on our show today.
Thank you for inviting me, Rohit, and I look forward to have a great discussion with you today.
Interesting. So, Ashok, as a ice-breaking question, finally, designers have a voice to expand the design scope, bringing into environment rather than the chorus of tools, frameworks, design structures, case studies, user interfaces, and digital objects. The question that I have for you there is, what are some of the practices that designers can use to ensure their designs are visually communicated to earn that trust?
Okay, this is a very good question, Rohit. Well, first, I feel that a true designer always had and should have a voice. A designer always, defines that he would like to take this field because there's always an inner calling in him or her, unlike any other profession. The reason being that the inner calling and the person who realizes this is that he can feel and he or she can feel that they can solve complex human problems or create something wonderful out of nothing. Hence, I say that a passionate designer always has a voice, and I've seen this in the last, so many years of working. But now, on the practices that one can follow and remember are that design that is only focused on visual communication without a business purpose is not a great design. It does not work. And what I feel is that design must always drive and support business metrics, whether it is strategic as well as very strongly aligned with visual. It has to involve real customers, their needs and wants through various research techniques. You should always involve cross-functional project teams whose KPIs are driven in this project and co-create the solution. Okay, because then the entire solution becomes a team's ownership, not like a designer working on silos. Here is where the value proposition comes out, the ROI of design comes out, and then trust becomes de facto. Because then the designer does not have to earn or prove the trust factor. It's part of the team.
Wow, that's an interesting take. In fact, what you answered, touched upon are the various stakeholders involved in the conversation. That's pretty interesting. In fact, moving from that icebreaker, Ashok, to your personal journey, having worked in design industry for over 2 decades, your expertise range from identifying the product concept, to developing design teams, to establishing best practices in UX and UI. You've conceptualized and led creation of many multinational brands that are used by millions of people out there. We'd love to know about your career experiences. How did the last 2 decades, over 2 decades, actually happen? Were they seamlessly planned, and that's how it is panned out to be, or was it sheer luck? How did the last over two decades actually were for you?
The initial part of my career, I went with the flow, and once I started getting senior positions, is where I did plan it. That's the way it went. I did plan when will I have my certifications or advanced education, and which companies I would work for, what are the kind of project that I would like to take for work with. However, my learning that I would like to share, is that irrespective of the size and the scale and the company that I work for, is to keep everything simple, because Rohit, we are in the business, or I am the business of working with people, whether they are part of stakeholders from an organization or if there are consumers on the other side. So hence, keeping things simple, and every design element in the UI that we create, I always strive to see a purpose for its presence. Otherwise, it does not work. It does not have any meaning. Hence, I feel this mantra has helped me, and I am very thankful for my mentors and supervisors to be very kind throughout my journey of over 25 years, where they've given and guided me with these techniques to how to look, into the details of any requirement or design, and then think through the working solution. This is what my career experience is, and that's what I'd like to share, Rohit.
Wow, that's such a gratifying comment where you actually remember the people who've added value in your journey and who've shaped your journey to be where it is. So that's really interesting. In fact, Ashok, while researching about you, we stumbled upon the fact that you built your organization's first user experience design studio from ground up, and you often wear several hats, such as manager leading your team to progress, lead designer envisioning end-to-end business, customer interface, and partner bridging the holes between a very talented team of project managers and designers. The question that I have for you there is, how do you combine all of your talents when serving in cross-functional teams?
Well, there is no method, or I don't see it as combining these talents or experiences. The lens through which I see any project or an engagement is that don't look at the size and the scale and millions of people it will make a difference for. Okay, at the initial stage, look uh, at the at the core purpose. Spend a lot of a quality time understanding what is the real design challenge here. What is that we're solving this for? Who's gonna use it? Why is the organization investing so much time and money into it? And pick and choose and think through rather the methods that uh, me and my team that would select to design this solution. Okay, look at the methods if it will deliver the expected outcome. That's very, very important. So these techniques are more important than looking at the magnitude or the diversity of the engagements on the projects, at the initial stage. So that's where I feel most of the time when we look through this lens and we analyze the design challenge compared to the brief that is given to us, is where it has worked in the bank or in the projects rather that I've been working on.
Beautiful. In fact, while you just mentioned bank, I was about to ask my next question, which is connected to your current workplace, HDFC Bank. In fact, I've been a proud customer since nearly 2 decades, and it is one of India's leading financial institutions, offering a diverse range of financial products and services to over 43 million customers out there. HDFC has achieved this by a single minded emphasis on product leadership, consumer focus, and operational excellence, emerging as a leading player in all of its market segment. The question that I have for you, Ashok, there is, could you tell us about the company's design team work culture?
That's a good question, Rohit, and I would love to answer this because this has been one of my very passionate engagements. 2 years back, when we were at the foundation of the studio, and let me tell you that in the BFSI sector, HDFC Bank is one of the only company who has this in-house center of excellence team, and I'm very proud to be part of it and very thankful for the senior leadership to come out with this vision and think through and also fund it. So over there, when we were at this foundational stage where me and my supervisor were debating and brainstorming, okay, because this is a team, this is a multi-skilled team with researchers, designers, writers, animators, program manager, developer. How do we position this in the bank, which is very, very, finance oriented, or rather retail oriented? B here is what can be the delivery method. So the B part was much easier. We decided that okay, everybody should be an independent contributor as per the levels of their experience, because that's key, because these are design SMEs. Now A part was very difficult for us. What is the culture? How do we define it? So the foundational team, which had joined about 2 years back, we came up with an idea to have a design hackathon. Okay, within the team itself, within the participants, we spent about a day doing a design thinking workshop, and there is where one of the outcome was to come up to define who we are and what we should, look forward for when a designer from the user experience design studio that we call right now from an HDFC Bank business unit comes out and talks and interacts and solutions the whole requirement. So we came out with these 4 dimensions. One was a thinker seeking and making inspiring measurable impact, using behavioral sciences and research. That was one key part of it. We are innovators using the power of design and technology to solve problems. We also are renegade, very, very pragmatic, realistic solution, and the focus is on to creating future shaping experiences. And if it does not work, or if you see a problem, say it much earlier than later, and always work as a collaborator. Look at the team spirit, focus on, though we are independent contributors, focus on the larger big picture. Okay, irrespective of seniority and designation, work with a lot of respect and, and help each other to take it forward, whether it is cross-functional teams or whether it's in the team, whether it's with customers doing research, and so on and so forth. These 4 dimensions helped us and is helping us now also to take the design studio forward and also drive the overarching design vision that we have is about providing delightful and frictionless user experience to all digital properties. So with these 4 dimensions, or I would say the culture, it really helps us to work on a daily basis and brainstorm and share knowledge, work on solutions and take it forward.
Hey, did you know the first of its kind interactive humanoid IRA was launched by HDFC Bank under the Project AI? IRA, which stands for Intelligence Robotic Assistant, combines robotics and AI to enhance customer assistance. Well, that's a very creative interesting way of actually defining culture at your workplace. I mean, this is the first time I've come across, hackathon being used as a channel to define how do you want to function, and it's pretty interesting. I'm sure that it must be an exciting and a very vibrant environment by how you are defining it, right?
Oh yes, yes, we actually lived through it, and it's a team who have varied experiences. There are team members with about 6 months of experience, or team members who've just started their career, with a larger part of the team, which is about, I think, um, 7 or 8 people who have over 20 years of experience in the 15 to 20 years of bracket. So it's a very diverse experience team that we have, and this culture really ties together. There are heated discussions to over a solution. There are differences, and we also, though these happens on a daily basis, we also spend a lot of time, okay, to have fun to every, because being a bank, we work on alternate. Saturdays. So we spend a lot of time doing team engagement activities, and these are also very creatively driven. There are storytelling exercises, there are team building exercises, and this is what keeps us going.
Well, this is so interesting. In fact, while you've been talking about all of this, and while I've been doing this podcast show since last over 1 year, I've heard this from many leaders who come from IT companies doing all of these exciting things, but rarely you come across BFSI, which has a very different positioning in your mind, doing some of these exciting hacks. That's a pretty interesting thing to know. In fact, moving further ahead, Ashok, as a financial company, the user connects with several gadgets, whether it's net banking or a smartphone app that I'll end up using on my phone. As a designer, we are still used to a system where mistakes will naturally occur. The question that I have is, how do you and your design team ensure that all people with separate devices have a seamless and unified experience? I mean, wouldn't it be a huge challenge because the people who are using it on smartphones, on feature phones, on tablets and iPads, on laptops, on desktops, and how do you still land up, designing a seamless experience across for all of these set of users?
As you know, Rohit, that design is an evolving process. While there are digital properties live from the bank side, but we are constantly working in the background to make it as much easier and as much context driven, to the customers. Over here, in the last 2 years, in the multiple engagements that we've done, what we strongly believe, and one of the pillars of the studio is, working on evidence-based designs, which means having a very deep understanding of our digital customer needs. And what I mean by saying this is that, the team over here, the studio, does a lot of qualitative one-on-one UX customer research for 1 hour. And we have been doing this across tiers in India. In the last financial year, we have done over 300 individual researches, where we spend a lot of time, on the customer needs and how are they going to use these digital properties before even creating them, and that's where we figure out the devices. We have spent a lot of time understanding their ecosystem through various research techniques, technically, and that's where, we go ahead and define, hey, look, this would be a mobile app, and the fidelity of the app should be like, if it is in a great internet connection or a zone, it will be full blown. If there is in a sector where we have less connectivity, can we have a text only app? That's the discussion that we have within the studio. As well as the solution that we also create, we also reach and understand from an analytic perspective also from other secondary research which is there in the bank, which are the devices people use. And that's where we derive at a solution which either can be responsive in nature or can have an app that is scaling up and scaling down based on the network, and or whether it has to be an ecosystem solution, which means completely from all touch point of the customer, wherever he's interacting, he or she is interacting on the dealer side or on the or on the bank side, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of study whether which is qualitative in nature. There are teams who do a lot of quantitative research, and insights of this research they get plugged into the solution. As I said, the studio has happened and functioning since last 2 years. We is working on a lot of digital properties, which I'm sure will see, we will see implementation in the future months and years, and gradually you'll see this change going forward. Um, that's where I look forward for.
Interesting. In fact, moving from your journey and the work at HDFC Bank to talking about what's happening in the design ecosystem and certain question on design, design as an area. In fact, design has once been widely seen, Ashok, as a means of making goods more appealing. Still, nowadays, it is seen as a way of thinking, an innovative process driven by desire for a greater account and customer satisfaction. In fact, user testing is a very critical aspect of making an immersive experience when designing a product. The question that I have for you there, Ashok, is how can analytics lead us in the right direction with our product, and how can we have the best framework for evaluating interaction with the product?
Well, now, Rohit, this is an interesting question again, and data analytics, it helps. It really helps. I'm sure we all know in understanding the customer's mental model or behaviors, and the way we look at it is, creating a micro segment from a persona based on their psychographics and their needs, and how can we design and solve those needs. Um, However, in terms of framework, the way I would look at it is like, when we are in a very, very initial stage of the project, in the formative stage of the project, the team spends a lot of time over here in this organization or in my past organizations. We spend a lot of time understanding the insights from this research, and we call it as a secondary research. And whether it comes from data analytics or whether we have existing research in the company which was done as surveys or any form and shape direct with the customers, and also spending a lot of time doing a digital landscape, whether if it's a banking solution or if it is an aviation solution, or let's assume it's a telco solution, but looking within the domain as well as outside the domain, because for a example, for a journey like customer service applies everywhere. So how was it done in some other industry, and can we get inspired from there is A. uh, B here is, in terms of research, uh, based on these insights is where the whole structural design, is it takes its shape, where we structure the key templates, the IA and navigation schema, very, very closely aligned with the design philosophy that is coined. Um, then, of course, as you also mentioned, UT, or the usability testing, is plays a very, very pivotal role in validating the solution that we have, which we do at a summative stage. And in terms of framework, I would largely see this as the three stages where you use a lot of current data analytics to come up with your structural design, and then go back and validate with qualitative research with your customers. And once the solution goes live, use Again, the life set analysis, whether it is A/B testing for multivariate, components, or again, based on the personas, create micro segments, understand the behaviors in certain journey, and come back and do a continuous UX program, or enhancements. That's the way I look at this framework, and it's quite fluid. Some solutions are already live, so can we reverse the pyramid and use it very flexibly? That's what I say. But analytics, with the maturity and which the technology advancement that we have, where we can understand the deep behaviors of customers, has been a game changer in many industries, and I'm sure is where we have seen AI driving recommendations in Netflix and many other such apps that we have seen in Amazon as well.
Absolutely. In fact, while we've been talking about the financial domain, my next question comes from a personal stress, Ashok, that I've been feeling as well, and would like to know a design thinking perspective to it. In fact, finances are such stress provoking issue for most of the people. I mean, definitely it's one of the most stress provoking issue for me, and it is important to know what can be done to improve this situation. I mean, the question that I have is, what are the key financial pain points for people, and how can they be addressed with right financial products? In fact, how can we change the relationships between human and finance and turn it into something pleasant? And I'm sure that there can be an interesting design thinking angle to it. What's your take here?
Okay, so this is the problem, rather the challenge, I would say, to phrase it better. That we as a team in the bank, we constantly discuss in all projects, and what we focus is how can we socialize or make it a democratic solution where the terminology or the journeys are not complex to masses. Okay, basically this is a mass driven solution, isn't it? It's nowhere now. We are living in an age where digital banking is done only by the digitally savvy people. It has reached out in various target segments. So we are, we always look into how can we socialize and make the whole financial term simple. How can we, work on the structure of a journey, whether it is investing in mutual funds or investing in stocks, okay, or making buying international stocks and investing in gold. How can it be simple? Okay, how can we talk the language that the customer can understand? A similar example which Robinhood has done in the US, where Gen Z is also very open to invest, and look forward for to do a secondary income. There's a lot of learning in this industry, and the problem statement that you are stating is gonna change very soon, is my perspective. Uh, all the financial institutes, whether it's bank or investment, the BFSI sector as an industry is looking into socializing and making things simple, focusing on ethical design. When I say ethical, is not about data pilferage. It's about, are you speaking the language, the terms and conditions that people can understand and comprehend and act on it? Or is it very very cognitively so heavy that we get intimidated and just call the RM or ask a friend who's financially savvy, can he help us through? Okay, uh, we were looking at on solutioning where it can be governed. Okay, can there be a governance at least in the products that we are looking at, that the terminology and with the language and the journey sounds simple, easy, and where it's seamless across properties. These are the few things that I see are the possible uh, solutions that can make things easier. As I said also, sorry, that it's a journey, and I'm sure the government of countries, and I'm sure in India it's high time that we also should come out with digital policies where it can be having regulations to keep things simple. Okay, when it comes to digital, I think policymakers should also be empathizing with customers, not to make the customer read through a huge terms and condition where typically a user, okay, 95% and more of the customers, when we have done research, people don't read, just tick mark it and they go forward. Does it really make sense? These are important game changers which I think seniors in the industry and people in the government should look into it.
Hey, did you know? As a one stop solution for knowledge and information on agricultural practices and to address the needs of the rural ecosystem, HDFC Bank launched the eKisan Dhan app. The app gives users access to a bouquet of agricultural and banking services on their mobile. Wow, interesting. In fact, this was an interesting brainstorming that we did on the podcast conversation.
Oh, thank you.
So, Ashok, one of the other interesting subjects discussed for several years now is minimalism versus maximalism. At Avantika, we have a magazine as well, and our third edition, if I'm not wrong, was on this subject of minimalism versus maximalism. So, while minimalism or maximalism may be considered merely an aesthetic choice, it also determines many other decisions we make in product design and overall experience in general. The question that I have for you there is, how can designers implement and stand by their principles in web and product design?
All right. Well, I have a little contradicting view here, and sorry for this. I don't believe that there is something called minimalism or something has to a term called uh, you know trends or latest using latest features is important and making it maximum is important. Okay, or methods like fast, easy, and quick make it very lean and deliver it in like few weeks. I'm sorry, I have a different school of thought. What I believe is design for context. Okay, and because things that are feature driven, function driven, and we are pushing things to make our UI look animated and very very presentable, has always have a it always has a shelf life. Okay, and becomes a very very strong contender for failure. Okay, so the why I'm saying this is because for enterprise product like call center and operational type of applications which are very heavy data driven, we design for density. We don't design for minimalism. It cannot happen. Okay. Whereas when we are working for customer facing applications, you'll design or for a requirement which will align with those target segment psychographics. Okay, are they inclusive as a solution? So how can we focus and design or craft a solution which can be a balance between the both and also serves the larger purpose in terms of completing the task effective or completing the task with the most efficient solution that can possibly be. So these are two schools of thoughts, I would say. So I don't believe that there's we have to focus on whether it's be minimalistic or it should be a maximum solution. It is clearly on context and where the need persists. Use trends which can be consumed by a contextual solution. If it is made for masses, trends becomes intimidating. People don't accept it. They have a huge learning curve. And however, if it solves your objective, we should be looking into that piece as well. And that's where I believe this works.
Absolutely. In fact, beautifully and well said, Ashok, in terms of a very interesting perspective. Rather than contradictory, I would really say that it's a very unique perspective that you got on got onto the table, and it's actually got me thinking into how do you relook at the entire thing. But moving ahead on our show, Ashok, and that brings me to my second last question, where we blend technology with the world of design. Robots and virtual assistants are already an important part of our lives. The need to uh, assess the implication of this new kind of interaction feels more appropriate than ever. There have been major shifts in our existence defined by our new relationship with technology itself. And the question that I have for you, Ashok, there is, in the context of building relationships with technology, what should we be most aware or cautious of, especially from a design perspective?
From a design perspective, I'm going back through my few words that I just spoke. One, A, is it inclusive? Okay. B, is it simplifying the customer's lifestyle? All right. Um, Whether it is voice based or AI based, is the solution helping people, or is just a technology innovation, accepted by the early adopters? um, is it managed ethically, and does it have the right governance in terms of in terms of data security, in terms of taking the right information, in terms of getting the minimal steps? Because virtual assistants or robots cannot provide all the solutions. They can get the customer started, maybe taking a lead, addressing the first few questions. Then it has to very very nicely blend and converge with the larger solution, which can be completing the rest of the user journey on a device that it is meant for. Okay, does an AI or AI chatbot complement the whole solution in the ecosystem, the digital ecosystem that the customer is going through? you know that's very very important. Okay, what is the role of the AI chatbot before we jump on the solution? Okay, it's something new, let's accept it. Does it talk to the customers, if he's wearing a watch, a watch that can be integrated with the application? Does it align with the device, the handheld devices, whether it is different kinds? If it is in the healthcare segment, there's so many variants of devices. Okay, does it help through all those devices? Okay, does it talk to the larger devices which have different form factors? If it is in the media industry, like a video wall, television, or your the other conventional devices that we have, laptop, and desktops. This the role of this solution, or the trending technology solution that we look forward for, the emerging solution. That's very very important before we as designers accept it in our ecosystem. Okay, that's where I feel we should be conscious of, and we should be very very empathetic of our customers before we bombard them with these innovations that are coming along.
Absolutely. And in fact, we would love to continue this conversation with you, Ashok. But unfortunately, due to paucity of time, it brings me to my last question. At Avantika University, we've coined this term called as designeering, which is the blend between design and engineering. Do you think both these worlds converge and meet at some common point? What's your view on our philosophy?
It's already converged, isn't it, Rohit? Because we as designers always engineer and work in a way that we look at the customer's perspective, and we tie and weave solutions which are technically feasible, and of course align with business objectives, isn't it? We are design engineers already. Okay, it's a great terminology, and I think we are already in the business, and we have been in the business in the last 20 and more decades in making this work.
Wow. Thank you so much, Ashok, for validating this. and it was a pleasure doing this conversation with you. I'm sure there's so much learning for our listeners of this podcast show. Thank you so much for joining us on the show and doing this with us.
It was a pleasure talking to you, Rohit, and thank you again for inviting me here.
Hey there, we hope you enjoyed our show. Do write to us on ads@avantika.edu.in. We look forward to your opinions, feedbacks, and suggestions of speakers you would like us to host on this show. Do tune in our channel next week on Wednesday for a new story on Hubhopper or wherever you get your podcast from. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter.